Hello. In this C++ programming video, I will be covering switch statements. Switch statements are used to simplify code that checks a single variable against many possible values. So, what is a switch statement? A switch statement tests the value of a single variable and matches it against multiple case options. So, as you can see in this example, we have a standard switch statement syntax. So, we use our keyword switch, and then we have an expression, and then we're going through multiple cases. So if case is equal to value 1, it will execute that code and then break. If it's value 2, it will execute that code block, and it will break. What I mean by breaking is it will go outside the switch statement, similar to when an if statement conditional is done executing. And then as if statement has else, just else, switch statement has default, which runs if none of the cases match. So let's go through our first example here. We're going to write a basic day of the week program. So we're going to use integers here. So we're going to define int. We're going to call it day. And at that point, this is going to be the number that represents a day. Next, we want to ask the user for the day. So we're going to use cout. Please enter the day. And then at that point, we are going to get that from the user. And to do that, we're going to use sin. So we're going to take that in. So at this point, we can go through our switch statement logic. Basically, depending on what the number is, we're going to print out what day that corresponds to. So we're going to use switch, and then we're going to pass in day. So that is our expression. And then we're going to open and close it with curly braces. And then we're going to put our first case here. So our first case is 1. And then 1 is we're going to associate that with Sunday. And then we're going to break. So as a review, if the number is 1 Sunday, we're going to print out that day. And we can repeat this with all 7 days of the week. So case 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. As you can see, you cannot use the same case twice. And then we're going to replace that. With the corresponding days. And finally Saturday. So the only thing we're missing now in this switch statement is our default. And for that, obviously, there's only 7 days in the week, so if there was an invalid input, we're going to print that out to the user. And then after the switch statement's done, we're going to return 0 to indicate a successful execution. So once we have that all saved, let us compile our program. So G++ example2.cpp, and we're going to call it day. So that's run day. So please enter the day. Let's start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if there's an invalid input, let's just do -1, for example. It says that it is an invalid day. So now that we got this example done, when should we use a switch statement instead of an if statement? Well, we use switch statements when checking a variable against many fixed values, like numbers or characters. We prefer to use it over long chains of if-else when possible, because I would say this is easier to read than an if statement. It's a little more explicit. But we avoid switch statements when comparing ranges or using complex conditions. In that case, we would rather use if or if-else. Some common mistakes. The big one is forgetting break. This causes unintentional fall through. So as an example here, if I got rid of break here, I saved it and recompile it. I'm called day 2. I accented. Example 2.cpp. And we compile that. If I enter 1, it's going to enter both. It's going to print both Sunday and Monday because it's not going to break. It's going to fall through to Monday and then it will break. So that's an easy mistake. However, sometimes you want this, but not as common as just using break every case. Another mistake is using non-integral types like strings. Switch only works with integral or enum types, like int or char. We'll do an example with char in a minute. And not providing a default case. This can leave edge cases unhandled. So let's do another example here this is going to be a simple menu system. So we're going to use, instead of int, which we use for the first example, we're going to use char. So let's do char, let's call it option. And then we're going to ask the user to either choose option A, option B, or option C. So choose A, B, or C. And then we're going to get that input. And then we're going to define our switch statement. So in our expression, we're going to put option. In our first case is going to be A, and then code, we're going to print that out. Cout, you chose option A. And then we're going to break. And then well, we forgot, you have to surround it with single quotes for that to work. And then we can just repeat this with B and C. And then we're going to return 0. So again, very similar example, but in this case we're using char. So Make sure it's saved, and let us compile this program now. Let's call it menu, and that's run it. So as we can see, we can do A, B, and C. And if it's not one of those things, if we do option D, for example, nothing will happen. So as a practice challenge, write a program that takes a grade letter, so A, B, C, D, and F, and prints out a message. So like A, you could do excellent, and then F, you could do something like failed, try again. So in this episode, you learned the syntax and structure of a switch statement. You learned when to use switch over if else. You learned how to avoid common mistakes. And we went through 2 real examples for menu systems and day selectors. If you found this tutorial helpful, do not forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. Reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you for watching and have a great day.